Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Probably the most recognizable of North America's waterfowl is the large Canada Goose. Often called the Canada Honker, it is a powerful flyer with the ability to instill awe and admiration in all who see this magnificent bird splitting the sky in great wedges during autumn migration. Many hundreds of thousands of these geese spend the summer months in Canada, here in the Hudson Bay area, and fly south to spend the winter in the southern Illinois area. En route, they began stopping here at the Horicon National Wildlife Refuge in Wisconsin. They came in such numbers that they created a serious problem. Abruptly, the refuge was being managed for geese and not for other wildlife, and the geese were devastating crops on surrounding farms. Recently, we were invited to come to Horicon Marsh in east central Wisconsin to observe the steps being taken to encourage the geese to move on to their normal wintering grounds. We're making our approach to Horicon Marsh by helicopter to get a good perspective of the marsh before making surface observations. Its 30,000 acres provide a superb habitat for waterfowl and mammals of many species. Originally, Canada geese came here in small numbers because food sources were lacking. To improve conditions, a program to provide food for the geese was inaugurated, whereby dry ground perimeters of the marsh were planted in farm crops. The marsh, with its many tree-dotted islands, was originally meant as a refuge for nesting ducks and other wildlife. Instead, because of the phenomenal increase of geese, a severe game management problem has resulted. We're heading now toward our prearranged landing site at the edge of the refuge on higher ground abutting the marsh. Here we'll be met by an official of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Department of the Interior, who will give us a complete picture of the problem and what's being done to rectify the situation. The area where we're landing was, in years past, planted in crops to attract geese, but this helped create the problem presently existing here. The problem this refuge and the surrounding area have with geese reaches its peak in October. Hi, Jack.
Hi, Marlin.
The geese are now moving south from Canada in great numbers and stopping to rest in this vast marsh. And this is the man faced with the unusual problem here. The manager of Horicon National Wildlife Refuge, Jack Toll, an experienced wildlife manager.
Our general objective here has been to make Horicon Marsh less attractive to the geese and to cut our fall population of 200,000 in half. To do this, we have discontinued planting farm crops for geese, and in addition, we're attempting to shorten their stay here by hazing them from this area with a variety of techniques. Marlin, today I'd like to show you some of the research we're doing and the hazing techniques we're using.
Fine, let's go. To understand what a singular problem the geese have become, one needs only to take a brief look at what is happening at one of the farms near the refuge. That's where Jack Toll is taking us now. Most of the farms here plant alfalfa and pasturage for their stock as a food source. One of the closest farms to the refuge, which we're just approaching, has much of that sort of pasturage. It's immediately apparent that even though there are farm buildings close by, the geese overcome their usual fear of habitation to feed on such pasturage. Coming in as they do by the hundreds and even by the thousands, they cause considerable destruction to the farms in a wide radius around Horicon Marsh. Identification collars on the necks of some have code numbers which indicate they were previously trapped as part of the continuing Canada Goose research at Horicon. Destruction of the food grasses grown for cows is only a small part of the problem. It gets worse. We're going to look now at another form of devastation these migrant geese perpetrate. It occurs as they invade the cornfields. Improved farming methods here have resulted in corn crops that are mature when the hungry geese arrive. Since federal regulations prohibit shooting them just to protect the standing corn, the geese devastate these fields in the vicinity of Horicon Marsh with impunity. So long as they have an abundant supply of corn on which to feed, they will stay here until severe winter weather closes in. By state law, reimbursement is made for goose damages to corn, but many farmers feel it is insufficient, and the limited goose hunting allowable does not keep geese out of the cornfields. The difficult problem the refuge has is how to discourage the geese and haze them into continuing their migration. With this in mind, we're going to return now to the marsh to see one more major problem involving the waterfowl there and some of the methods the refuge personnel are employing to haze the geese away. From this point, Jack Toll and I will continue our observations by airboat. Wearing sound mufflers lessens discomfort from the noise of the airboat. But this same noise is sometimes used to haze geese away. Horicon Marsh is extremely important in that it is one of the largest cattail marshes in the world. In order for good wildlife management to prevail here, the problem of goose overpopulation must be resolved. Few people know better the value of sound wildlife management than Horicon Refuge Manager Jack Toll.
Here at Horicon, we're proud of the fact that this marsh has become such an important sanctuary for waterfowl and other animals. But the very fact that conditions are so good can in itself create problems with which we must cope. There have been occasions when 2/3 of all the Canada geese of the Mississippi flyway have been here at Horicon at the same time. A large segment of the population could be decimated if any sort of disease broke out. That concerns us. Therefore, we consider it important not to let geese concentrate heavily in areas where sickness might occur. Here, Horicon Refuge personnel are concentrating on a waterfowl health problem. Throughout this particular area, a botulism outbreak has been occurring, and ducks, coots, and geese are affected. Regular refuge patrols search the water surface for afflicted birds. Sometimes the birds located are sick, but most often they are dead. The carcasses of all botulism-killed waterfowl are collected and taken to another area on the preserve where they are burned. Here is where we use the noise of our airboat motor to haze heavy concentrations of geese and ducks away from this area of botulism outbreak. Another method used for hazing geese in the marsh is a cannon-like device called an exploder, which fires automatically. In various locations, we have 200 exploders meant to frighten off nearby geese. The noise is exploding propane gas injected from this tank into a detonation chamber. Although Horicon Marsh is primarily a refuge for waterfowl, there is much other wildlife here which requires management. Some of the animals are found on the many islands throughout the marsh. We're heading for one of those islands now, where I'll drop off Marlin. These islands also play an important role in the wildlife community existing at Horicon. While Marlin observes some of the island's wildlife, I'll swing wide around the island and pick him up on the other side.
The sumac leaves have already changed to brilliant scarlet, and everywhere one looks, the colors of autumn are apparent. Just ahead, a raccoon, amid bright red berries of a firethorn, seems quite unafraid and not at all inclined to run away. It's probably a female, because close by there's a very young raccoon, most likely her cub. Although it's evidently a little curious. It's a curiosity interwoven with a small thread of fear. There is a sizable population of raccoons at Horicon. Here on this little island at the very heart of Horicon Marsh, the civilized world seems far removed, and there is always a prevailing sense of tranquility. The fringe areas of the islands, well overgrown with cattails, are often inhabited by wildlife. They're especially favored by ducks, and almost at once I'm fortunate to get a close look at a drake wood duck. Aware of possible danger, he swims low in the water. As if sensing I will not harm him, he begins moving more naturally. As many as 2,000 of these beautiful ducks have come to Horicon Marsh each year. With the sound of the airboat approaching, I'll now head for the rendezvous point. What we've seen thus far at the marsh represents only a part of the total wildlife management picture here at Horicon. Now we'll see another aspect of it in a different area. Some research which may be helping to solve the dilemma of overabundant geese here. I left Jack Toll and went to where cannon nets, like this, were being utilized to capture geese on higher ground for studies leading to improved waterfowl management. We're now a fair distance from the marsh and have reached the upland area. Two members of the Canada Goose project team have been waiting for the research project leader, Scott Craven, of the University of Wisconsin. We're several hundred yards from the capture area. That area in front of the cannon net, baited with corn, has attracted some geese, but they're still at the perimeter, beyond the range of the net. There are still some geese coming in. New arrivals, attracted by the hawkings of the geese already on the ground here, are landing among them. They are all gradually moving toward the bait. When enough are there, the signal to fire will be given by Scott Craven.
Our research on the geese captured at Horicon is indicating that the birds may group together here in definite subflocks. By accurately determining this, we can then evaluate their distribution in the flyway and their arrivals and departures during migration. My project assistants are Susie Dudley, University of California, and Tira Lindquist, Evergreen State College. 3 subspecies of Canada geese come to Horicon: the Richardsons, the giant, and the subspecies called interior, which constitutes almost all of the population here. The cannon net charge will be set off by use of the electric plunger-type detonator held by Tira. With the geese clustered densely in correct position now, there's no need to delay the firing any longer. About 100 geese have been netted with that shot, and now we'll have to hurry to prevent their escape from the edges of the net. It only takes a moment for our vehicles to cover the distance to the net. Parking their truck close by, my assistants move quickly to prevent escape of the birds. In our vehicle, we will park closer to the net, and Marlin and I will prepare for processing the birds right here. A very important factor learned through the research on these captured birds is the ratio of adults to young. From this, we determine with considerable accuracy the breeding of the geese during the previous spring. This helps us evaluate the overall health of the Canada goose population. This information may provide some degree of accuracy in forecasting next year's goose population at Horicon. The captured geese are processed in several steps. First, the outer edge of the wing is measured. Next comes measurement of the upper bill. Such measurements provide us with factors identifying which of the 3 subspecies the geese belong to that come here. The data logged here will be computer analyzed later. In order to keep the goose calm, its head is tucked under its wing and held there. Geese and other birds stop struggling immediately when they can't see. We then determine the sex and age of the bird. Then, a numbered metal leg band is attached to provide mortality data if the bird is harvested during the hunting season and the tag is recovered. Finally, a plastic collar is placed around the neck of the goose for identification from a distance. These collars help us determine where the geese go from here and how many return, and the collar numbers and color identify individual geese. As soon as the processing is completed and all the information properly logged, the goose is taken a short distance away for release. We have found through such banding and collaring that of the survivors, 80 to 90% return to Horicon Marsh the following year. A total of 12,000 geese have been sexed, aged, measured, banded, and collared thus far, and the information gathered will help establish improved goose management procedures. In the 1940s, Canada geese were harvested to dangerously low levels. Now they number about 500,000 in the Mississippi Valley population. With such an increase, good management becomes vital to maintain the ideal population level.
The scientific work being done here to gain management information and the efforts to reduce the Canada goose population at Horicon are obviously beginning to have an effect. Whether or not the desired proper balance can be achieved
is a matter still to be resolved.
There are numerous problems to consider in properly managing wildlife, and many of them are not so obvious as one might think. The dilemma at Horicon Marsh is a classic example of how the best of sound management intentions can go awry. It is significant that the once threatened Canada goose is now secure, yet the problems which have resulted were not imagined early on. As with most innovative projects, it takes trial and error to come up with a finally sound program. The Horicon Marsh story points out two important truths. It is good to preserve wildlife, but equally necessary to understand what effect such preservation may have. We live in a time when there is still ample opportunity to balance man's presence with that of wildlife to achieve a harmony that is of value to both. By doing so, we will eventually come to a modern and workable balance in the wild kingdom.